Good morning, everybody. It's a bright sunny morning, as you can see, and yeah, it's a nice Sunday morning. Looking forward to the Wimbledon final between Anderson and Djokovic this afternoon. Plus, it's the World Cup final between Croatia and France. So, some exciting sport to look forward to today. My little subject this morning is really about going back onto the political front. Because we've had a very interesting and stimulating visit from President Donald Trump over the weekend. Well, beginning of the week, end of the week, and over this weekend, and it's brought quite a lot of debate round the dining table. Obviously across Parliament, and obviously it's brought a lot of attention on the media front again as well. My favourite media front. Yeah, I mean, people have been demonstrating around the country in various city centre locations that Donald Trump is not welcome, and it gets featured by the media as if most of the country has this view, 90% of the country has this view. And anybody that is contrary to that is welcoming Donald Trump, or feel it's unpolite to stage these demonstrations with Donald Trump pictured as a baby floating over Parliament Square, is disrespectful. Now, people have been allowed to protest and demonstrate in around the country and in London for it's freedom of speech, and we are famous for it in the UK. That's what we do in London in particular. I don't think one weekend goes by, particularly in these warmer climate times, without a demo going on something. Those of you who visit London, you will know there's always people standing around with placards, and crowds do grow in certain parts of the city over the weekend, particularly to voice opinions on what's going on in the world. So this is nothing new. This happens. What tends to happen? What's happening with this one is the far right are also trying to get in on the action and cause a bit of grief in some respects by adding a bit of fisticuffs and violence to it, which has got nothing to do with this. So that those right-wing people are always going to have that approach as well. But the moderate people in the middle, I'm not talking about moderate liberals, I'm talking about moderate people so much in the middle, many of which don't have any opinion at all, many of who do support the fact that he is the United States of America and therefore he should be welcome in the UK. The media put things in Trump's mouth, quite honestly. They ask questions. I mean, I've got some video clips of it. They ask a question and they get a reaction, an answer from Trump in his way, but they don't record they don't put out in the media how they put the question to Trump. They just put out how he answered the question. And Trump is quite happy to make these comments when he's asked questions. He's open and he'll do those sort of things. He's not a diplomat, as we know. He'll just say it as he sees it at the time when asked a question. And it gets then slanted, and this is where this fake news comes from that Donald likes to talk about in many respects. I'm listening to a woman MP, Labour MP, I won't mention her name because I can't remember it, but she was talking about, he hates women, he puts children in cages, he's anti-Muslim, he's all these things, which is to me rubbish, nonsense. He's the President of the United States, first of all. He may be a human being like every one of us, but he is a human being, and we should be treasuring our relationship with the United States and the man who heads up the United States at this moment, and working towards that common goal all the time of showing each other respect. regardless, in my view. They're just looking at opportunities and ways to see him trip up and make a gaffe, make a mistake, make him look stupid, so he can, so it gets into the major headlines, rather than what good he can do and what good he can offer. Interestingly enough, there was on his first day he had attended a dinner at Blenheim Palace with Theresa May and other members of government as one of the first official meetings. And at Blenheim Palace, that is the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill. And it is well known that Donald Trump, he admired Winston Churchill as a great leader, and as he's always stated on many occasions, his attitude towards Winston Churchill. And while he was at Blenheim Palace, there is a Winston Churchill museum there as well, and he sat in the chair that was Winston's favourite chair. And the picture got into all the press, and it caused major eruption. Sorry, I just stopped it then because that was one of Richie's friends in the front door. This photograph of Donald Trump sitting in Winston Churchill's favourite leather chair, it got press negative reaction everywhere. And one particular Labour MP made the point that, how can we allow, he's not welcome here, Donald Trump, and how can we allow him to sit in Winston Churchill's favourite chair, and how can we make him look like a statesman like Winston Churchill was. Winston Churchill was one of our greatest statesmen, one of our greatest leaders of the country. And of course, she's quite right in terms of what Winston Churchill was. But what is the hassle with Donald Trump, the President of the United States, sitting in Winston Churchill's chair? Someone who Donald Trump says himself is someone he admires. And the argument is, well, because Churchill was a great leader and a statesman. But let me say this to you. If I was to do a good comparison between a British Prime Minister of now or the past and Donald Trump, I would say the Prime Minister that comes closest in characteristic to Donald Trump is Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, very similar to Donald Trump in terms of how he acted, how he responded to situations, his bombastic approach, how he was, to some extent, how he was brought up. Let's think about that. Winston Churchill, as a youth, he wasn't regarded as a scholar at all. He came bottom of his class in everything. He was nearly thrown out of Harrow. There are many letters on record of how slovenly he was and how he didn't care and how he didn't take his lessons seriously. And his principal wrote to his father and said he won't get anywhere in life. That was as he was growing up. And he made entry into various roles through his influences through his parents, because his father, Randolph Churchill, was a politician, and his mother put a lot of emphasis on pushing him forward in his life. So he sort of had that silver spoon in his mouth to some extent, like Donald Trump did as a youth. But I think it's his approach and how bombastic he was in his personality and character. Churchill, yes, I'm not talking about when he stood up to Nazi Germany and Hitler in the darkest hour. The darkest hour. Fight them on the beaches. I'm not talking about that speech where he rallied the whole country when Britain stood alone against Germany. I'm talking about all the people he was rude to and put people's backs up and did things that were well, he was regarded as a bit of a maverick as a politician before he became Prime Minister, when he was Prime Minister, and even in later life. And I've got a book which I've got many books obviously on various people, but Churchill is somebody I actually studied at when I was going to school still, and you know, he was. I mean, just to read. I mean, let me just. Sorry, I haven't got my reading glasses down here. So, I mean, as you know, Winston Churchill, he loved his cigars, and he loved his brandy. You know, it is well documented. He loved his brandy. This is a statement between him and Bessie, who was an MP, a Labour MP. This is directing a statement at Winston Churchill. Winston, you are drunk, and what's more, you are disgustingly drunk. This is Winston back to Bessie. Bessie, my dear, you are ugly, and what's more, you are disgustingly ugly. But tomorrow, I shall be sober, and you will still be disgustingly ugly. I have got books, loads of they've written books on it, and this is from the Churchill Family Trust in terms of how these things were put together. So, you know, Churchill was a great statesman, of course he was, and he did a lot of great things for the country, of course he did. But he was human, like Donald Trump, and he put his foot in it many times. And he was rude and he was bombastic. And he said things that didn't always go down well. And Trump has done the same. And he admits he's made mistakes on occasion. But, I mean, let's comparing it with history. I'm comparing Theresa May and this white paper, this new white rule book that she has created with a few, that's caused all these resignations, that she's now taken to the EU, hoping the EU are going to agree it, which they may or they may not. I think it will be strange if they do. But if they do, it's really an agreement that says, well, we are out of the EU, so we have no say now, because we've left the EU, we've got no say in the rule book of the EU. But in some respects, we still have to agree on the rules of the EU. So I don't see how that's a good negotiation, but I compare it a little bit to Chamberlain going off to negotiate with Adolf Hitler in 1938, where he comes back with waving a piece of paper that Adolf Hitler signed, saying Germany and Britain will never go to war in 1938. And we all know what happened then in 1939. And Chamberlain had to step down, and Churchill came in, formed a coalition and the rest is history, as they say. So, you know, this is where I see history as it is. But people, I guess my biggest frustration, people read little snippets of the media about Donald Trump and jump on he's a racist. He hates Muslims. He hates women. He locks children up in cages. I mean, if really we want to believe all that nonsense, I mean, do we? I mean, but if people want to believe that sort of stuff, you know, well, I think everyone's human, and everyone's got personal issues somewhere hidden in their closet. I've got no doubt about that. Trumps are all out there. He's misquoted. I've never seen a president misquoted as much as he is, quite honestly. Yes, he does make mistakes, and I'm not saying he's everyone's cup of tea. He's not mine. He's not my cup of tea in every respect. But I respect him as the President of the United States. And, you know, I respect the United States and the people of the United States. And the people of the United States are very welcome to come and see Britain, as far as I'm concerned, and I would hopefully like to be welcome in the United States. And that's the way it is. He may last another term, Donald Trump, he may not. The people of the United States will decide on that. Not the people of the UK, certainly not the Mayor of London, certainly not people who stand with banners saying, "You're not welcome, Mr. Trump." I think people need to be careful and think about the bigger picture, not believe what they read in the media. Look at the history books, look at history, look at the detail of the history. Think about Winston Churchill, our great statesman, and some of the things he said, which are not dissimilar to what Donald Trump says, quite honest with you. And have a good day. Bye-bye.